Hello everyone, and welcome to another oil painting video. These are my colors today: titanium white, Hansa yellow light, Alizarin crimson, French ultramarine, sap green, and raw umber. Every once in a while I keep forgetting I double the speed, so it's a little quicker than with the way I can talk. Once again, we're doing Daniel Smith water mixable oil paints, and once again we're also using a Gessobord made by Ampersand. This is an 11 by 14, a little bigger than I've been doing. I think my last couple were like a 9 by 12 and 8 by 10. So here's an 11 by 14 flat panel again. And I want to make it real clear, I'm not affiliated with anybody actually, let alone these products. And these are rapidly becoming my favorite. I love this surface. And I know I said that in the previous video. I love the paint, and right now this is the only thing I want to paint with and paint on. The cleanup is great. There's no fumes, no mess. It's a huge high pigment load, and it covers, as you can see, it covers wonderfully. Okay, this one is going to be a mountain scene with the river, which is what I normally do. I love mountains and rivers, you know, mainly fir tree type of trees, like Christmas trees a little bit. And this one is going to have two mountain ranges. This one, as you can see, I'm making light, like a light mauve, maybe a slight pinkish tint to it. And I'm adding a little Alizarin Crimson, and then I'm going to blend that in a little bit just so you can see it, but I want it to be kind of faint. And if you notice the sky, I've got a little bit more Alizarin Crimson on the right side, the same side as these background hills, than I do on the blue side on the left. And I wanted it to kind of not blend in together completely, but close. Okay, I wanted you to be able to see it, but faint. And then I was going to have a bigger range on the left-hand side. And then that's the only drawback of painting with brushes. You get those little hairs every once in a while, and you got to keep it tweezers by your easel. Okay, so I don't have lessons unless you guys want. Leave it in the comments below what you want to see and what you want to do. But we're going to do a little bit of a lesson here in perspective, okay? Atmospheric perspective, to be exact. So, distance. That's the one thing that we're going to deal with right now. You see how faint the color is and how there's no detail as far as specific highlights and shadow or anything like that, okay? The eye doesn't see the detail in the distance. It sees not necessarily a blurb, but it just doesn't see detail, and it doesn't see explicit colors, okay? If you notice what I'm doing here with this mountain, the colors are a lot richer, a lot darker, and there are going to be highlights that are going to definitely be distinct and stuff. Now, this ground, I made a mistake on, and it didn't get as good as I wanted, and then I started thick paint. One of the beauties of these panels is you can see right here, I just lost my mind, went too thick. And I saw that immediately. So, usually I do a shop towel, which I'm going to in this video, but for this particular one, I just scraped it off. One of the things about these panels that's nice is they've got a tooth to grab the paint, okay? It's not a perfectly smooth surface, so they do have a tooth. But it's not a really rough one, okay? So a palette knife slides very easily over it. So get yourself a cheap palette knife at Hobby Lobby. You know, the diamond shaped is a good one, probably medium size. And you can learn to paint with it, like for highlights and stuff. And it's also great to take excess paint off of certain areas. You've seen me do it in the sky with clouds at times. Well, here I am doing it with, a little foreground land that I screwed up in. Okay, here's the river. And I'm going to adjust the top part of the bank right there. And then I'm actually going to adjust it again when I actually fill it in. But right now, okay, what I was talking about earlier about atmospheric perspective, just look at the faint mountain range to the right. Now, for all we know, that could be much, much, much larger than the one right here. But because it's in the distance, it's going to appear much, much smaller. This one has a lot richer color to it. The other one is a lot fainter. This one will have detail on it, where the other one doesn't. So that is a real easy trick to get depth in your paintings, okay? And the other thing is, too, I didn't do it a lot because I wanted it to be, I didn't want it pronounced where it kind of reaches out and says hello, but I wanted it to be somewhat visible. So I overlapped a little bit, but not a lot. And that was by design, because overlapping is also a way of showing distance. Okay, now, if you look at my river here, it's a mixture of mostly French Ultramarine, a little Sap Green, a little white, and a little Alizarin Crimson. Now, this foreground that I'm putting in right now is the same mixture as the water, believe it or not. The difference is there's a lot less blue and a lot more Alizarin Crimson and Sap Green. But the three color mixtures are identical. It's just the amounts. And that's one of the things I'm learning and studying and practicing is mixing colors. As you saw on my palette in the beginning, I only have 5 colors plus white, okay? And I may stick with the 5 or I may go down to 4. I don't know. It just depends on how well I'm able to mix the stuff I want to mix. Okay, so if you can see here, you can just tell by the shine on some areas. The foreground, the river a little bit, and especially the mountains are just gobs and gobs of paint. Way too much. I went too crazy on it, and it's a big area. I could use the knife and scrape it off because of the panel. You could do it on a canvas too, but the panel makes it even easier, and I didn't even realize it until I started using these panels. Not necessarily exclusively. I still have quite a few canvases left, but I'm using them a lot more. And here I am trying to spread the paint out and not be so thick. And pretty soon I'm going to come to the realization, John, just stop making it worse and wipe the darn thing off. And that's going to happen sooner than later here with my blue shop towel. And what shows me it right there is as soon as I started putting the highlight on, no go. And sometimes when you're stubborn like I was, I can see the thick paint, and I was figured, nah, I can take care of it. I can do that. I'm a professional. Now, sometimes when it's just thick paint, it's thick paint, and it's going to look like garbage. And as soon as I laid that first attempt at a highlight down, guess what? It proved what I knew all along and just was too stubborn to do. So when in doubt, listen to yourself. And, hey, look how much nicer the highlight goes on when it's not on thick paint. It's amazing how that works, isn't it? Wow, it just stays on the top and doesn't blend in. John, you're a genius. Just a little late, but a genius. Okay, so now I'm putting in my highlights, and now I'm putting in the shadows. Now, one of the things that I found with shadows that I really like doing is I like using the French Ultramarine. And what I like doing is, as you can tell, I'm doing a lot of strokes. And that's intentional. I'm blending those highlights in with the base color of the mountain itself. And I do that with rocks and everything else. And I just get a better look to my mountains and stuff. I really like the way it looks. So my process is I start with the highlight, which may or may not be the right thing to do. It just works for me. I start with the highlight, then I put in the shadow, and then I reestablish the highlight over the shadow. And that's kind of the way I do mountains and rocks. That's, the step I do. Initially, if you wanted the whole thing, I block in base color and make the shape. Then I stop being stubborn and wipe the excess off. I put in the highlight, put in the shadow, and then I reestablish the highlight. Now, this particular instance, when I'm doing with the fan brush, there's no paint on this brush, okay? It's a dry brush. And what I'm doing is I wanted the mountains to appear a little smoother where my highlight was. I'm still at this stage not sure how much of the mountain is going to be visible. So just in case I put little tiny trees, like in the foreground, I wanted the blend to be a little smoother than normal. I didn't want these mountains to be too rugged. I just wanted a soft feel for some reason, which wasn't actually that smart, but that's what I wanted. And here I am putting the extra highlights on. And then what I ended up doing, and this is the part that you're going to learn as you go. I made these rocks too darn smooth, these mountains too darn smooth. They look like rocks in a riverbank instead of, a mountain. So what I'm going to do is hide most of them. Okay? And this is one of the things that I mentioned in, when I first started doing YouTube videos, no person, no artist ever is perfect. You always make a mistake somewhere, sometimes many mistakes. And when you execute a painting, you do your best, you pray, and you see what happens. And then you do a good painting. And then sometimes you do one that's not good, or maybe just part of it's bad. These mountains aren't bad, but in the context of where they are, they don't look right. So, Alizarin Crimson, French Ultramarine, and Sap Green. Yes, I love that combination for a lot of stuff. And what I'm doing is I'm covering a lot of those mountains up to push them back and then to not see the symmetry I have within those mountains. So this way now they look so much better because they are covered. You still see mountains peeking through, but you don't see the whole where every line is perfectly straight from, top left to bottom right. It just gets real annoying. And it's funny too because I've done so many paintings and I know better. But every once in a while, when you're kind of like on freeform going, you don't realize it until you got this thing down. It's like, son of a gun. How did you get that darn straight line again? So it's something you got to be aware of. And if you don't catch it while you're actually putting the strokes down, one of the things that I do, like when I'm not here actually painting, is I'll step back about 6 feet to look. And then when I step back, that's when I saw the symmetry and the way the slopes on the mountains were. And I was like, son of a gun. Did not want to see that. So now I'm doing the wiping off everything and getting everything so it's a lot easier to put the water highlights and a lot easier to put the grass and stuff like that on there. Okay, this is the water. Now this is not going to be, running rapids, but it's also not going to be glass smooth. And one of the things I'm going to do on here that I did by mistake, but I loved it, right there, I'm doing those types of strokes to make almost swells in the river. And I really, when I stepped back, which I'll do in about a half a minute here, I really liked the way it looked. Now I'm going to cover some of it on the front bank with reeds and flowers, but you get the whole gist and it really blends in nice together. So I really enjoyed, the way that looked, and that might be something else I use on rivers. I like that. It's almost like a slight elongated horizontal comma stroke. Okay, now this mixture is something that you've never heard me say before. French Ultramarine, Sap Green, and Alizarin Crimson. And I'm just going straight up with a 1-inch brush and getting all these nice little reeds in. And I love doing the riverbank reeds and stuff like this. I really do. It's a lot of fun. You get those nice, beautiful, deep colors. And then you put the light flowers on. In this case, they're going to be yellow flowers. Hansa Yellow Light. And it just really makes, for me, I really like doing flowers along the bank like that. And then I think I was cleaning the brush to make sure it was clean when I put the yellow on. There we go. And cleaning the brush was just a jar of water. I got the jar at Hobby Lobby. I don't remember, maybe $10-12. And it had one of those little wire grates at the bottom of it that I used to use when I was using conventional oils with the brush cleaner, which I still am until they're run out. And then I bought an extra one just for the water. And then what's nice is when I clean the brushes, I clean out that jar. So like right now, my brushes are drying and the jar is upside down on a napkin, actually a shop towel, drying as well. And I made the decision that I will for sure be using water mixable oils from here on out when my conventional oils are gone. I mean, I've got a lot of money invested in them, so I'm going to use them up. And then once my conventional oils are done, I'm going to stick with the water mixables, and I'm probably going to stick with the Daniel Smith brand because right now I'm loving it. This might be the 5th painting I think I've done with them, and it's just a wonderful paint to paint with. As you can see how deep and rich those colors were. And, you know, it's amazing, too. You saw on the palette, I didn't have a ton of color. Okay? Now, one of the things you did see is the paint wasn't like it squirts out of tubes. It was like it was mixed, and it was. If you want, I can show you what I did, but I mix each color with a couple of drops of the fast-drying linseed oil from Daniel Smith. So just drop a comment below if you want to see how I mix that and how much I put in. But here's the finished painting. I hope you liked it. If you do, please consider hitting that subscribe button and then the bell. And I will see you next week.